All right, so this is wall yin, and we will be starting in legs up the wall. So you can have a folded blanket at the top of your mat close to the wall. If you want more than one blanket, that's fine. The easiest way to get in legs up the wall is to sit sideways and then just kind of pivot around. And you might find that you need to make some adjustments. You might need to move closer to the wall or farther away from the wall. So just find the position that feels good to you. For maximum relaxation and optimal alignment, I like to stack my knees over my hip joints and then ankles over the knees, so your feet will be slightly apart. When you do that, your bones kind of stack up, and you can start to let go of any effort in the muscles, any tension in the muscles. And that is certainly one of the things that we strive for in any yin practice, is to keep the muscles as relaxed as possible so that we can access connective tissue, ligaments and tendons and fascia. So we're just going to start with a few moments in legs up the wall to let the body relax and settle into this position. There's no special breathing that you have to do, but a slow, steady breath works really well for calming the mind and relaxing the body. And if you'd like to practice a little mindfulness meditation, see if you can focus your full attention on your breath, on your inhales and exhales. There's several ways to do that. Little tips and tricks include noticing the belly rising and falling, counting the breaths, maybe saying 1 as you inhale, 2 as you exhale, until you get to 10, and then starting over. For a finer point of focus, you can choose to bring your attention to the space just around your nostrils above your upper lip, and maybe notice a cool sensation as you inhale and a warm sensation as you exhale. It's natural for the mind to wander away from the breath, usually pretty quickly if you're not accustomed to this form of meditation. So try not to get frustrated, and just consider it a success when you notice that your mind has wandered and you're able to bring it back to the breath. Anything I say from here on out is optional. So if you would like to remain in legs up the wall for the next 55 minutes, feel free to do so. But if you'd like to move the legs, if you'd like a little variation, start to bend your knees, bring the soles of the feet together, let the knees drop open, and come into kind of a butterfly position. You can stretch your arms out away from your body or place your hands on your belly, or if you like, bring the arms overhead and maybe just cross your hands right on top of your head. So your elbows are kind of pointing out in opposite directions the same way that your knees are. As your muscles start to relax in this position, you might notice that your feet drop a little closer to the floor. At first, you'll probably be holding some tension around the hips because our tendency, our natural inclination is to guard the hip joint. Once your body and mind realize that you're in a safe position, the muscles will naturally start to relax. It's perfectly fine to move if you find that you're experiencing any sort of pain or tingling or numbness. Otherwise, try to remain as still as possible. Start to bring your knees together and extend your legs back up the wall. You can bring your arms back down by your sides if they've been overhead. And just notice any sensations in the legs or in the hips or even in the arms. Once you feel those sensations start to subside, separate your feet a little bit wider and then bend your knees and slide your feet down the wall, maybe until the ankles are parallel with the knees. So you find yourself in what's known as frog on the wall. It might feel a little bit like happy baby. If you take your feet a little farther away from each other, your knees a little farther away from each other, you'll start to get that stretch on the inner thighs that frog position provides. Notice whether you're holding any tension in your low back or in your hips. And if you are, see if you can release that, maybe with a longer exhale. And as we remain here for the next few minutes, see if you can continually release tension in the legs, the hips, or the back, maybe even in the shoulders, perhaps even in the face, the forehead, or the jaw. So in Yin Yoga, there's really only two times where we give ourselves permission to move or to adjust in a pose. The first, I've already mentioned. It's if you're experiencing any pain or tingling or numbness. The second is if your body starts to release and invites you to go a little bit further. So in this position, when I find that happening, I just kind of toe heel my feet apart a little bit more, just fractions of an inch. This position is also a good way to get the benefits of a deep squat that we sometimes do in yoga often referred to as garland pose, with the feet wide apart, the knees wide apart. Usually hands are at heart center. So this is a great option if that pose is a little too intense for the knees, ankles, or hips. Go ahead and start to bring your knees and your feet together and extend your legs up the wall again. And again, just kind of notice sensations in the legs. You might notice some warmth or maybe even coolness in the fronts of the thighs or around the hips or the inner thighs. And just notice how those sensations come into being and they linger for a certain period of time and then just dissipate. When you feel like you're ready, start to let your legs fall open. And if this position is too intense for you, you can bend your knees again. You can go back to butterfly or to frog on the wall. This is just a little more intense stretch for the inner thighs. And I think in this pose, more than any of the ones we've done before, you can really notice when your muscles start to let go, your feet drop closer and closer to the floor. And you'll probably notice that they don't do that at the same time, that one foot moves and then the other. While yoga certainly has physical benefits and mental benefits, it can also teach us lessons that we can take off our mat and into our daily lives. When we learn to be fully present on the mat by observing sensations in the body, by observing our breath, we're better able to be fully present in our daily lives. And perhaps that's why we call yoga a practice. It is practice. for daily living. To come out of this pose, you might find that you need to bend your knees first, or you can use your hands to help move your legs back together and back up the wall. Stack your joints again, knees over hips, ankles over knees. And observe as the sensation in your legs and your hips come and go. When we learn to observe the impermanence of sensations in our body, we can carry that into our daily lives so that when we're stressed out about something, we recognize that the situation isn't permanent. It will dissipate. From here, bend your right knee and then cross your left ankle over your right knee. You'll feel probably a mild stretch in the outside of the left hip. You can make that more or less intense by moving the right foot closer to the ceiling or closer to the floor. You might notice these sensations or this position is quite similar to pigeon pose. If you want to explore this pose a little bit further, you can gently move, kind of lean to one side or the other, and just find any areas that are exceptionally tense or any areas, any position that feels particularly good. And once you find that, just resolve to be still there for a few moments. Take a moment to check in with the left hip And notice whether it's relaxed enough to allow you to move your right foot down just a tiny bit more, maybe a quarter of an inch or half an inch. If you're able to maintain your slow, steady breath, you're probably right where you need to be. If you find that you're holding your breath or that the breath isn't flowing quite as smoothly, you might need to back off a little. And then conversely, if you can maintain your slow, steady breath, but your mind is restless, wandering around, you might require a little more sensation in the left hip to maintain your focus, your attention. From here, slide your shin across your thigh so that you end up with your knees crossed. And then very slowly let both your legs fall to the right so that you end up in a reclined twist. Now, if crossing the legs like this feels like too much, you can uncross the legs and just stack the top knee on top of the bottom knee. You can also support the legs with a blanket or a bolster. One of the things I like most about Yin Yoga is that it's not so concerned with alignment. The only way to recognize whether you're doing the pose correctly is to notice whether or not you're feeling any sensation. Start to make your way out of this twist and back into legs up the wall. You might notice the difference between sensation in your left leg and your right leg. When you notice the impermanence of that sensation, start to bend your left knee and then cross your right ankle over your left knee. Again, you can adjust the intensity by moving the foot closer to the ceiling or closer to the floor. Once you've found the appropriate intensity, once again, you can explore different areas by gently leaning to one side or the other, very slowly exploring the different sensations that that provides. And then just deciding where to stop, where to hang out for the next few minutes. You might do a little body scan, head to toes or toes to head, just to notice whether you're unwittingly holding tension in any of your muscles. See if there's any tension that can be released. Go ahead and start to slide your right shin across your left upper thigh so that your knees end up crossed. And then very slowly start to let your legs fall to the left into a reclined twist. Once again, feel free to uncross the legs if that's too much sensation. As you notice sensations in the body, avoid the tendency to label those as good or bad, or the tendency to be disappointed if things aren't the way you expect them to be. Very slowly start to come out of your twist and back into legs up the wall one last time. To come out of legs up the wall, bend your knees, slide your feet down, and just roll to one side. And we're going to come into Sphinx. So you're going to roll over onto your belly. You can keep your mat right where it is and just stretch out. So your elbows are under your shoulders, but you can adjust. That's just kind of a starting point. So if you feel like you need to move the elbows forward or back, you can. You can start with the feet about hips distance apart and then decide whether they need to be closer together or farther apart. If you're experiencing a lot of tension in the low back, usually moving the feet farther apart helps. If Sphinx pose is a little too intense for you, you can come down to crocodile, which is just stacking one hand over the other or the forearms and letting the forehead rest on top of the hands or forearms. But I'll encourage you, if it's not painful, to remain in Sphinx pose for a few more minutes. It's actually the perfect counter pose to legs up the wall. In Sphinx pose, you can try sweeping your attention from head to toes on your exhales and from toes to the crown of the head on your inhales. Again, just noticing sensations in the body. If you find that you're craving a little more sensation here, take your palms farther away from each other and press up into seal pose. If you try seal pose and it doesn't feel good, just go back to Sphinx pose. Or you can even go down to rest in crocodile pose. If you are in seal pose, go ahead and lower the elbows to the mat, coming back to Sphinx pose. Take a breath or two here, and then when you're ready, press into the palms, lift the elbows lower to crocodile. When you feel any intense sensations start to dissipate, bring your palms under your shoulders and press up into tabletop. And you can take a moment here to move a little. You might sway your hips side to side or make circles with your knees, or sorry, hips. And then when you feel ready, come into child's pose. You have a couple of choices here. You can keep your knees and your feet together, sink your hips back to your heels, let your forehead come down to the mat or to a block, and sweep your arms back by your sides. Option number two is to keep the toes together, but take the knees out wide, and then sink the hips back to the heels and stretch the arms out in front of you. Start to make your way back up into tabletop. Take your right arm and thread it under your left arm. Lower your right shoulder and your right temple to the mat. You can keep your hips up high. And then you can either keep your left hand where it is, or you can stretch the left arm out in front of you. While you're here, try to relax your right shoulder and your right arm as much as possible. If your left arm is extended out in front of you, bring your left hand back under your shoulder and press up into tabletop. You can notice any sensation in the right shoulder. And then when you feel ready, thread your left arm under your right, lower your left shoulder and your left temple to the mat. You can keep your right hand where it is, or you can stretch the right arm out in front of you. Relax the left arm and the left shoulder. If your right arm is extended in front of you, slide your right hand back under your right shoulder, press up into tabletop, and just take a pause here to notice sensations in the left shoulder. And then whenever you feel ready, start to make your way onto your back for Shavasana. You can feel free to make yourself comfortable in whatever way you like. You can place a bolster under your knees, cover up with a blanket. Well, let your exhales be a signal to your body to let go of any effort, any tension. For the next several minutes, just allow yourself to be. Let the breath come and go just as it wants. Start to bring your attention back to your breath. If you like, you can start to make small movements with your fingers and toes. You might gently move your head side to side. When you feel ready, take a deep inhale. And as you exhale, roll to your right side. Slowly make your way up into a seated position. Bring your hands to heart center. Gently lower your chin towards your chest. Take a moment to notice the effects of your practice. Notice how your body feels. Notice your state of mind. And notice the quality of your breath. Take one more deep inhale and a long, slow exhale. Thank you for practicing with me. Enjoy your evening. Namaste.